Howdy again everyone, and today I've got a treat for any wide-angle lens enthusiasts out there. In fact, it's the widest angle rectilinear, that is, not fisheye, full-frame lens that I've ever tested, and boy is this thing crazy. The new 7Artisans 9mm f5.6 is jaw-droppingly wide, almost ridiculous. It could be used for a number of purposes. Landscape photography could be one option, although it might really be a bit too wide for that. Ideally, I think this thing is for architecture photography and shooting indoors. Its rather dark maximum aperture of f5.6 though means it'll be difficult to use for astrophotography work. Its price is in the description below, let me know if I forget to put it in, and the lens will be available for Sony E-mount, Nikon Z, Canon RF and L-mount cameras. I'd like to thank 7Artisans very much for sending me a copy of this lens for evaluation, although as usual this is a totally independent review. The lens itself is small and very tough and solid to hold in your hand. At 450 grams or just over a pound, it definitely has a little weight to it. It's a totally manual lens, manual aperture and manual focus, although at such a wide angle, manual focus is really no problem at all, especially when working at a maximum aperture of only f5.6. Everything's just in focus, and the manual focus ring turns smoothly and precisely. As you can see here, the lens displays a very small amount of focus breathing. Video makers will never be doing these kind of focus pulls anyway. In front of the focus ring comes a metallic aperture ring with gentle clicks. That's it really, just an aperture ring. Works nicely enough. The lens comes with a small built-in metal hood and also has a front slip-on lens cap. The lens is not weather sealed, and unsurprisingly, considering its unbelievably wide angle, it cannot use front filters. Unfortunately, there's no room for any kind of rear filters either. That's everything. It's a simple lens that works really well. So let's take a look at image quality. Unsurprisingly, considering the lens's ridiculously wide angle, my test chart is not going to work so well here, so here's a big hedge instead. I'm testing on a Sony a7R III camera here with its 42 megapixel full frame sensor. In-camera corrections are not available here. At f5.6, the lens is brilliantly sharp in the middle of your images with good contrast. And here's some further good news, the corners look great too, although darker than the middle due to vignetting. Stop down to f8 for just a touch of extra sharpness but no more brightness. Stop the lens down as far as f16 and you'll see some softness begin to emerge though, due to the effect of diffraction, and f22 looks pretty hazy now. Still, a really pleasing performance there. I wasn't expecting image quality quite as sharp as this. It's harder to see without my test chart, but it looks like colour fringing is very low also. Okay, let's take a look at distortion and vignetting. The lens shows a moderate amount of barrel distortion here, nothing that'll create any serious problems in everyday shooting. At f5.6 we see darker corners, and they remain this dark down to f8 or f11. Because that vignetting doesn't go away, I'd say this does not appear to be optical vignetting due to lens design, but rather natural vignetting caused by the cosine fourth law of illumination falloff on extreme wide-angle lenses. So really, there's nothing 7Artisans could have done about this issue, you just have to correct it yourself. Okay, let's look at close-up image quality now, and this lens can only get you as close as 20 centimeters to your subject. That's not very close, but at least image quality remains as sharp as ever there. Let's see how the lens works against bright light now. There's a fair bit of flaring here, as you can see, but it's not too opaque. Stop down to f8 and a lot of it goes away. And while we're working in the dark, let's take a look at coma levels. Bright points of light in the image corners don't really show much smearing at all here. Stop down to f8 to see some big sun stars emerging, which get a bit better defined at f11, but don't get any bigger than this, so it's a good lens for sun star fans. Finally, bokeh. Well, actually, that's rather an irrelevant question on a lens this wide, even at f5.6. Here's the most out of focus you can get. Those backgrounds still look smooth enough, though. Overall, well, you might have noticed that this is one of the shortest lens reviews I've ever put together, and that's because this lens is really so very simple. Thankfully, the sharpness is there, and on such a wide-angle optic, sharpness is the biggest priority. Other nice bonuses are decent contrast, low coma levels, reasonable distortion correction, and monstrous sun stars. You'll want to correct the lens's rather strong vignetting, but that's the only fly in the ointment really, so the lens has to come highly recommended. Thanks for watching everyone. Boy, these inexpensive wide-angle lenses are getting better and better. If you find these reviews helpful and find yourself watching them often, then check out my Patreon page. My Patreon supporters are out of this world and make a huge difference to me keeping this show on the road. Link in the description below, and ciao for now, everyone.